Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. What happens when someone runs from the truth for too long and the consequences finally catch up? On Coronation Street, Theo Silverton's story ends in a way no one in Weatherfield will ever forget. After weeks of tension, lies, and emotional turmoil, Theo Silverton tries to escape the fallout of his action by fleeing Weatherfield. But his desperate attempt to run away spirals into tragedy when his frantic drive ends in a devastating car crash, leaving the entire community shocked and struggling to process what happened. The storyline surrounding Theo Silverton builds toward one of the most heartbreaking and explosive endings that Goebbels have seen in a long time. For weeks, the tension between Theo and Todd Grimshaw had been slowly boiling beneath the surface. What looked calm on the outside was actually a complicated web of secrets, manipulation, and emotional damage happening behind closed doors. Eventually, the truth about Theo's behavior begins to surface, and once it does, everything changes. The carefully crafted image he had built around himself begins to collapse. People in Weatherfield start realizing that the situation between him and Todd was far more serious than they first believed. The lies Theo relied on for so long begin to unravel, and suddenly the man who once thought he could control every narrative around him finds himself exposed. As the truth spreads through the community, the atmosphere on the cobbles grows tense. Friends who once trusted him begin to turn their backs. Conversations filled with whispers and suspicion ripple through the street. The pressure around Theo intensifies with every passing moment, and for the first time he begins to understand that he may have completely lost control of the situation. One of the people most furious about the truth is Kit Green. When Kit realizes the extent of what Todd has endured, his anger explodes. Determined to hold Theo accountable, Kit confronts him in a moment that becomes one of the most dramatic clashes Witherfield has witnessed in years. Emotions run dangerously high as Theo's carefully maintained facade crumbles in front of everyone. For so long, Theo believed he could talk his way out of anything. He relied on manipulation, half truths, and charm to keep people on his side. But this time it doesn't work. The lies that once protected him suddenly hold no power. The people around him refuse to believe a single word he says anymore. With the possibility of police involvement growing closer and the community turning against him, panic begins to take over. Theo's mind, once calm and calculating, becomes clouded with fear and desperation. The reality begins to sink in that his life in Weatherfield might truly be over. Feeling completely trapped, Theo makes a reckless decision. Instead of facing the consequences of everything that has happened, he convinces himself that the only way out is to leave immediately. Late one evening, when the tension across the street is at its highest, Theo hurriedly packs a few belongings into his car. The moment is frantic and chaotic. It's as if he believes that putting miles between himself and Weatherfield will somehow erase the damage he's caused. Without looking back, he climbs into the driver's seat and drives away from the cobbles in a desperate attempt to escape the fallout. But the emotional storm inside his mind makes it impossible for him to focus. Anger, regret, fear, and denial swirl together as he speeds through the dark roads outside Witherfield. The faster he drives, the more it feels like he's trying to outrun the reality of what he's done. Back on Coronation Street, people quickly begin to realize that Theo has disappeared. Todd, who has been deeply shaken by everything he has gone through, is left trying to process the whirlwind of events that turned his world upside down. While part of him feels a sense of relief knowing Theo is gone, another part can't shake the uneasy feeling that the story isn't finished yet. Kit Green immediately begins trying to track Theo down. His instincts tell him that someone in such a desperate emotional state could make a dangerous mistake. Unfortunately, those instincts prove to be tragically correct. Out on a dark stretch of road far from Weatherfield, Theo's escape reaches its horrifying conclusion, distracted by the chaos in his head. He fails to notice a sharp bend approaching. When he finally sees it, he reacts too late. The car swerves violently as he tries to correct his steering. The tires scream against the asphalt as he struggles to regain control. For a split second, it looks like he might manage to recover. But the moment passes in an instant. The vehicle veers off the road and crashes into a solid barrier with devastating force. The sound of the impact echoes through the quiet night. When the dust settles, the scene is chilling. Theo's car lies completely wrecked, twisted metal and rising smoke marking the end of his desperate escape. Emergency services are called quickly, and responders rush to the scene. But when they reach the vehicle, the damage is already catastrophic. It becomes heartbreakingly clear that Theo will not survive the crash. In those final moments, the man who once believed he could control every outcome is forced to face the consequences of everything that led him here. His story ends alone, surrounded by the wreckage of choices he could no longer escape. Back in Weatherfield, the news spreads rapidly. Residents are stunned when they hear what happened. Even those who were furious with Theo struggle to process the suddenness of his death. For Todd, the emotional reaction is especially complicated. Theo's actions cost him immense pain and fear, and the trauma of what he experienced cannot simply disappear. Yet hearing that Theo died so suddenly leaves him feeling a confusing mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and shock blend together in a way that's difficult to understand. Kid Green is also deeply shaken. His determination to confront Theo came from a desire for justice and accountability. He never imagined the situation would end in such tragedy. Learning that Theo died while trying to run away leaves him grappling with difficult questions about whether things could have played out differently. Across Weatherfield, conversations begin unfolding everywhere, from the rover's return to the cafe and along the cobbled street. Residents try to make sense of the shocking events that unfolded so quickly. Some people remained angry at Theo for choosing to run instead of facing what he had done. Others acknowledged the tragic reality that his fear and despair ultimately led him down a path that ended his life. The crash becomes one of those moments that permanently marks the community. It's the kind of story people will talk about for years, long after the wreckage is gone. For Todd, the aftermath is particularly emotional. While Theo's death means the immediate danger is over, the emotional scars remain. Healing from everything he experienced will take time. Rebuilding the trust and the sense of safety will not happen overnight. Thankfully, he doesn't have to face that journey alone. Friends across the street rally around him, offering support and reminding him of his strength. Slowly, Todd begins to realize that surviving such a painful chapter in his life is something he can eventually move forward from. In the days following the tragedy, the mood across Coronation Street grows quieter and more reflective. People begin thinking about how quickly everything spiraled out of control. The story ultimately becomes a powerful reminder about consequences. Lies, manipulation, and emotional harm can spiral into devastating outcomes when they are allowed to continue unchecked. Dio's final act, trying to escape rather than confront the truth, leads him down a road from which there was no return. His story doesn't end with redemption or reconciliation. Instead, it ends with a sudden and shocking reminder of how fragile life truly is. As the residents of Weatherfield slowly returned to their daily routines, the memory of the night Theo fled and the crash that followed remains one of the most haunting chapters in the street's history. The storyline leaves a massive emotional impact on Coronation Street. The show often explores real life themes, but Theo's ending takes things to a particularly powerful level. The storyline highlights how lies and manipulation can snowball into something far more dangerous when people refuse to confront their actions. It also shows how fear and desperation can push someone into making decisions that change everything in an instant. For the characters of Weatherfield, the fallout isn't just about Theo's death, it's about the emotional aftermath that remains, especially for Todd, who now has to rebuild his life after everything he endured. The community is left grappling with the uncomfortable truth that justice, closure, and tragedy don't always arrive in the way people expect. Honestly, this is the one of the most intense and emotionally layered storylines Coronation Street has delivered in a long time. Instead of giving viewers a simple resolution where everything neatly wraps up, the show chose a far more realistic and uncomfortable ending. Life doesn't always give people the chance to explain themselves or make things right. Theo's decision to run away instead of facing the consequences ultimately sealed his fate, and that makes the storyline feel painfully real. It also gives Todd's character a powerful opportunity for growth moving forward, which could lead to some incredibly emotional moments on the show. Theo Silverton's story ends with a shocking crash, but the emotional ripple effects will stay on Coronation Street for a long time. The residents of Weatherfield now have to move forward while carrying the memory of a tragedy that happened in the blink of an eye. But now I want to hear from you. Do you think Theo deserved a different ending? Or was this the inevitable consequence of his choices? And how do you think Todd's story will evolve after everything he's done through or been through? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Coronation Street drama, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you'd never miss the next big storyline breakdown.